Hello everyone, welcome back to Reading with Raptors. I've had this food sitting here for about 10 minutes as I was setting up everything, and just now as we were starting, she's coming over to eat it. So a couple of tidbits here for our red-tailed hawk we are going to be reading with today. This is Alula, one of our resident red-tailed hawks here at the University of Minnesota Raptor Center. A great example of a hawk that most of us here in North America can see year-round, and a lot of us see in the middle of cities as well as suburbs and kind of out in more kind of rural country areas. I thought this kind of city-dwelling hawk would be a great bird to read with because I encountered this delightful book a volunteer brought in that really is about bird watching in the cities. I know it doesn't sound like a great idea to those of us who are currently in a big kind of Arctic blast, but we are coming up sooner rather than later on our springtime migrations are going to be starting up in the next month or two. We're going to start seeing a little bit more of that thawing. You might be hearing there's another bird in this room right now. Maybe at some point I'll turn the camera so we can see, but there's also a great horned owl on the other side of the room. So you might hear her making a few noises as we go along. But it's gonna be springtime soon. I know it doesn't sound like it right now to most of us here in North America, at least, who are currently experiencing some really ridiculous lows for February, but soon. And there are still lots of birds that even out in the cold, you can still see even in the cities. So here's this delightful book. The pictures are so cute. It's called Ruby's Birds. It's by Mya Thompson with illustrations by Claudia Dávila. And it is actually taking place in Central Park in New York City, where you can actually also find some red-tailed hawks. So we're gonna watch this red-tailed hawk while we read Ruby's Birds. So we'll get started. Here, even right away, the inner cover has all of these different birds on the inside. Looking at some pigeons, uncover her. So this is, oh no, I'm gonna cover her up. Maybe I'll rotate a little bit so she can be a little bit more in here. You might be able to see actually before we get started. This is the great horned owl who's currently on the other side of the room. So maybe I'll leave the camera like this for a few minutes. We might cover up our great horned owl extra guest here as we go along with the book, but we will cover that as we go along. But we might get this bird taking a little bit of a bath after eating a little bit of food. So here is the first page. You can hold it like this so we can still see her. School's out. Mom and Dad are at work. My brother Malik is at soccer practice. Grandma's at her spot near the window. Alex keeps her company. Things are too quiet around here. I know what to do. Here is our main character, Ruby. Some drawings on the table, a piano in the corner. We have Grandma by the window. We have Alex, this wonderful cockatoo, here on top of his cage. What is she gonna get up to? I play the piano, the piece my parents say is very grown up. I practice my dance routine, the one Malik calls stomping. I talk with Alex in the secret language Grandma taught us. Here it says, "What going on? What going on?" You can almost hear it in the parrot voice. I sing at the top of my lungs the song I made up myself. You see Ruby doing all of these fun activities in that apartment. My neighbor Eva from downstairs hears everything. She calls up from her window, "Ruby, want to go to the park?" "Yes, yes, 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 yes," I sing. We have that downstairs neighbor. Here already is actually a small bird here on the tree right outside the window, listening in. We pass my favorite bakery. We pass Cece's apartment. We walk right past my regular park, the one with the twisty slide and the sprinklers. I guess Ava is going to a different park. I skip to keep up. These baked goods look delicious in that window of that bakery. Friend Cece that they're passing on the steps. Here's that other park. There's a nice robin up in the tree. I wonder where they're going. follow her all the way to Central Park, where my parents sometimes take us on Sundays when we're all dressed up. We have the big gates, this big green open area. Looks like, I think this might be supposed to be a cowbird. And then here we have a peregrine falcon perched up on a tree. You can also find peregrine falcons in cities as well. So here they are walking into Central Park. Eva is going to the woods. I've never been that way. We sing made-up songs about joggers and strollers and fancy dogs. So here are our friends walking to the woods in Central Park. Here we have some interesting folks. We have somebody pushing a stroller. We have somebody out jogging. We have somebody sitting with, looks like some sort of poodle maybe. A couple different birds. We have a nice mallard down here in the water. This looks like a black-crowned night heron, if I'm not mistaken. And up here, it looks like we might have a crow or some other kind of blackbird. Oops, sorry, the glare. So you can see a couple different birds around. Seems like probably a busy park from what I gather. Suddenly, Ava stops. She looks up. She is listening. I quiet down and I listen too. What's wrong, I wonder? I hear a police car, a plane, some barking. Here we have our friend Ava with the binoculars. There's a buzz, 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 buzz up here. There's a plane in the background. I think these are Cedar Wax Wings up here in the tree, but Ava seems to be looking at something else. I tug on Ava's sleeve, but she's not paying attention. She holds her binoculars up to her eyes. She is frozen like a statue. And then she smiles a huge smile. Here we have our friends down on the ground, Ava looking through those binoculars. And here is a tiny little bird up in a tree. I guess everything's okay, so I start singing again. Ruby, Ava sighs, you scared him away. Who did I scare away? I ask. Ava flops down on a bench. I sit too. It's a bird I've only ever seen back home in Costa Rica, she says. He's just stopping through on his way north because this is the best patch of woods for miles around. He's quite a singer, just like you. So here is Ruby accidentally scaring away a bird. And here they are talking about the bird that just flew away, who's migrating. Up here, it looks like we have an oriole. He's made a little kind of, these look like little kind of pouches almost. They're nests that they build. If you stay quiet, we may be able to find him again. He's a golden-winged warbler. I nod. I don't say a word, or sing a word either. It sounds like something from a fairy tale. We move carefully. We're serious. We pay attention. We watch for tiny movements in the leaves. We try and try. No luck today, says Ava, but now you know what to do. Here's Ruby imagining that golden-winged warbler. It does kind of look like something from a fairy tale, right? Here they are, figuring out the best way to find these birds. I sing myself to sleep, as usual. I'm very jealous of this owl nightlight down here on her bedside table, but you can see the dreams she's having of all these fantastical birds and these beautiful colors, maybe living in more tropical habitats. These are beautiful drawings, illustrations. On Sunday morning, I beg for a walk to Central Park. Malik's not interested, but it's family time, so he has to come anyway. We pass the bodega, we pass the theater, I sing my song, my family listens along. So here they are walking down the street in New York, families all dressed up, heading over to Central Park. At the park, I lead them straight to the woods. I'm silent. I'm serious. I'm paying attention. I hear a rustle in the leaves. Shh! I say. Just like Ava, I'm frozen like a statue. Here we have Ruby leading us into the woods, telling her family, shh, be quiet. Wonder what they are seeing. A tiny bird pops out of the leaves. It looks one way, then the other, then right at me. I can't help it. I get that huge smile, just like Ava's. Look, I yell. Ah, yes, says Grandma. I saw a warbler, I sing as he flies away. There's that warbler up in the tree. Here he is flying away. Going to go explore more of this little woods over here in Central Park. And here is our family and Ava and Ruby looking at a book. Looks like they're looking at a field guide of the golden-winged warbler. You can see a little picture of it in the book and then a little map next to it. It's probably showing where it lives at different times of the year. So everyone learning about birds together. Here's a nice kind of backstory to this book that I'm going to read with a couple of kind of great pieces of information about finding birds in kind of city areas. And so I'm going to read these because there's a lot of really wonderful information, but I'll hold the book down and show you the pictures as we go along so you can enjoy our red-tailed hawk and great horned owl in the background. As a brand new bird watcher, Ruby is lucky to live near Central Park, one of the best places in the world to enjoy birds. You can find more than 280 kinds of birds there if you know where to look and how to listen. It's mind-boggling to think that so many bird species live right in the center of New York City, one of the busiest cities in the world. Some birds, like robins, starlings, and crows, stick around all year. Others, like the warblers, use the park mostly as a stopover in spring to rest and eat before they continue their migration north to nest and raise their own family. Warblers are a group of small songbirds famous for their high-pitched warbling. Ava has a feeling that Ruby will love getting to know a bird that likes to sing as much as she does. When Ava hears the bee buzz buzz song of a male golden-winged warbler in Central Park's North Woods, it reminds her of the comforting forest sounds back home in Costa Rica, where this bird spends the winter. She grew up calling warblers reinitas, or little queens, and gets a burst of joy every time she finds one. She also knows that these warblers are becoming rarer and rarer in the wild, so she is grateful to see that this one has safely made its journey from Central America. It does also say you can learn more at allaboutbirds.org or centralparknyc.org. Yeah, actually, sorry, I'll show you up a little bit more closer. There's another illustration of that golden-winged warbler. Warblers are a kind of infamous group of birds among bird watchers, since there are so many of them and they have an amazing variety of colors, but a lot of them can also look quite similar. It can be very tricky. So here's some information on this page. It says about birds at home and find birds in your city. So I'll read this page here. This one has a lot going on, so I'll hold it up here. Ruby's pet Alex is a sulfur-crested cockatoo, an intelligent, social, and long-lived species native to Australia. In Ruby's house, Alex is part of the family and gets to spend lots of time out of his cage. As pets, cockatoos can learn all sorts of words, like the greeting, "What's going on?" that Ruby's grandma from Barbados taught Alex. Because cockatoos become very attached to people who care for them and can live as long as humans, having one as a pet is a big responsibility. Luckily, sulfur-crested cockatoos are not endangered, but sadly other parrot species are becoming rare in the wild because so many people want them as pets. Before getting a pet bird, make sure it comes from a licensed captive breeder. Otherwise, here's how you can find birds in your city. You can find lots of birds in your city if you know where to look and listen, and there are many common city birds hiding in the pages of this book. Ruby hasn't noticed them yet, but you will once you look closely. The birds you'll find are all favorites of the Celebrate Urban Birds Project, a citizen science project hosted by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Celebrate Urban Birds connects people to birds and the natural world through neighborhood activities and the arts. You can celebrate birds near you by finding these species at your local park, playground, or near your favorite sidewalk tree. Be sure to share your discoveries with us by following the easy instructions on the project's website. So everyone can check out celebrateurbanbirds.org. It's a great project that the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, the folks responsible for allaboutbirds.org, that they have running for connecting people with birds and kind of learning more about how we're all interacting with birds in our cities. Now here are also some of the birds that were shown in this book. I tried to point out most of them. I won't read all of these, but I'll point out a couple that are pretty exciting. The Peregrine Falcon, it says, I think I pointed out when they were first walking into the Central Park. You can scan the rooftops and other high perches for these birds of prey. Then watch from above and dive down to snatch smaller birds in mid-air. Here we have I'm really excited about these coming up this spring. The Cedar Wax Wing. If you go to the park when the berries are ripe, the waxwings love them. They move in groups, so when you found one, you'll probably find more. Can't read a book about city birds without talking about the rock pigeon. Pigeons are easy to see in the city. You'll find them on sidewalks, searching for bits of leftover food and sheltering together on building ledges. Finally, a little bit about the golden-winged warbler. Visit city parks often in early spring when all kinds of warblers stop to rest and fatten up before traveling north to nest in wilder places. So you won't see too many warblers hanging out all summer long in the cities, but they might be stopping through as they migrate if you are a new or old city birder. And finally, Ruby's tips for taking a nature walk. I love the back page of this here too, with her running through the field with these birds flying around. But here are some tips for those nature walks. Number 1, get your family excited to go outside for a nature walk any way you know how. Chances are they'll be happy to hear that you want some fresh air and family time. If they say, but there's not much to look at around here, remind them that there are animals and plants everywhere, and you don't have to travel outside your city or town to go on a nature walk. If they say, but we don't have time today, ask them when they will have time, then put it on the calendar. Number 2, on your walk, find a place to rest, then stay still and listen for a few minutes. Challenge everyone to count how many different sounds you hear, including birds, dogs, cars, even airplanes, all of it. Number 3, or try a rainbow walk. That's where you look for things in nature that match the colors you can see in a rainbow. So you can look for things that are blue, or things that are orange, or things that are red. Number 4, take pictures and make recordings of what you see and hear as you go. That way you can look things up later. You can even make sketches of what you see. Remember, don't let your adults get discouraged. If they don't know what kind of plants, insects, mushrooms, or birds you see and hear, offer a hug and remind them that it's all about having fun and noticing new things. So here is Ruby getting ready to go on that nature walk with her family and then running out in that big, nice, open, grassy field with all of those birds. This makes me very excited for the spring birding season coming up. Here's the back of the book. It's got this really nice kind of park city scene. So this has been Ruby's Birds by Mya Thompson and illustrated by Claudia Dávila. Again, all about kind of seeing these birds out in the wild, wherever the wild is for you. It might be here in the cities, it might be in the suburbs, it might be out in the country. Maybe you're right next to a state or regional park. Maybe you're in the middle of downtown New York. There's always birds around, lots of birds that you can look at. The 2 birds that are in the room actually with me are both great examples. The main one I wanted to talk about is this red-tailed hawk, but since she was making some noise, we have a great horned owl here in the background who's just been inside to get a good bath during the kind of pretty chilly temperatures we've been having. So red-tailed hawks are a really common city raptor. I actually usually see them if I am on on the bus or in a car, if you take a look out the window, if you're on the highway, those big open roadways, usually if you take a look out the windows and you look up at the big light poles and electrical poles, you'll often see red-tailed hawks, these kind of large, kind of brownish, light tan birds. You'll often see them sitting, looking, waiting and watching. They're looking down at the ground for things like mice and rats and rabbits. During the warmer months, they're looking for things like snakes and lizards. So they're usually looking for ground animals. The highways actually kind of mimic their natural habitat. They're what we call an edge species, which means that they usually live in the areas where the forest kind of meets the open grasslands and prairie lands, so that they're able to stand and kind of hunt from those tall perches that are trees, but they're looking down and actually hunting over the big open grassy spaces. And if you think of what highways look like, they often have big open grassy spaces, those ditches and the kind of grassy areas next to the road, along with some tall perches in the form of those light poles and electrical poles. So we've actually expanded the habitat that red-tailed hawks have as we've built up a lot of our cities and our roadways. So this is actually a bird whose population has kind of expanded out, and they're living in some areas where they maybe wouldn't have been living before, but we've kind of made some open grassy spaces for them. She keeps kind of looking down on occasion into the water, and I was kind of hopeful that she would maybe take a little bit of a splashing bath here while we were watching. This particular red-tailed hawk, I don't think there were any questions that have come up, so if anyone has any questions before we sign off here, you can definitely put them in the chat. This particular red-tailed hawk, she is, I want to say 14 years old this year. She's been living with us here at the Raptor Center since she was a young bird, a juvenile. She didn't actually have that nice rusty red tail that you're seeing. She had a brown and gray kind of stripy tail. Her eyes were really light in color. Red-tailed hawk eyes are usually kind of a really lighter, kind of pale yellowish color and turn that nice dark brown as they get older. So she looked a little bit different, so we could tell she was a juvenile, a youngster, a first-year bird when she was brought into the Raptor Center. And she was brought in because she actually had a virus. It's one that might sound familiar since people can actually get it. It's called the West Nile virus. And so she probably got it from a mosquito that bit her, either while she was in the nest or kind of still living close by with her parents. Excellent, might get a little bit of bath action here. So she was bitten by this mosquito and she got this virus. And in hawks, a lot of times, one of the impacts that we see from this virus is it can cause some scarring, some actual damage to their eyes. So this bird, she can't see as well as she would need to live on her own out in the wild. She kind of has a couple different blind spots in both of her eyes that would make it pretty tricky for her to see and be able to hunt. She can see just fine everything going on in this room. She's great at teaching people about red-tailed hawks, but it makes it a little bit tricky for her to do things like swoop down and dive down and grab a fast-running mouse going over 60 miles an hour as she swoops down onto that mouse. It'd be pretty tricky for her to do that with the kind of decrease to her vision that she has. So that is why she lives with us and has for, like I said, about 14 years or so, I think, at this point. So we call her Alula. It's actually after a really important group of feathers. I don't see them sticking out now, but they kind of, I'll see if I can point out where on the wing they kind of are. They're right around here next to the wrist. So this joint up here is the wrist of the bird. Their wings kind of fold in like this with their elbow down and their wrist kind of at the top of the wing. And so the Alula feathers are a very important group of feathers that most birds have, but we see a lot with red-tailed hawks. When they are kind of swooping down, when a bird is kind of landing, if you imagine my hand kind of as the wing, they kind of tilt their wings down to slow themselves down. The Alula feathers are kind of like the thumb. They kind of boop, stick up at the top of the wing that helps to kind of control the balance and how kind of fast they're moving. It increases the surface area of the wing by sticking up this little group of feathers. It increases the surface area of the wing, which helps them to maintain control over their flight as they slow down and then come to a landing. And for red-tailed hawks who are swooping down and chasing after their food a little bit on the ground, they need to be able to really control when they're landing and how they're landing without doing what's called stalling out, which means kind of they're not able to keep themselves up in the air and they just kind of fall out of the air. They don't want that. They want to keep flying and stay in control of how they're moving. So that is where she gets her name. Don't know if you can see and how kind of close I can get this here, but this particular bird, this is something we see often with her, is she will often simply stand in the water when she has it. So she actually has one foot tucked up underneath her feathers, and she's just kind of standing here in the water. Sometimes she'll take a little bit of a bath. You could see her drinking a little bit of water earlier. She kind of dunked her head down and kind of lifted her head. You could see her kind of smacking her beak as she swallowed. Birds, their beaks don't move, so they can't kind of suck water in like we do if we're drinking from a cup or we're drinking from a straw. Birds can't do that because their mouths aren't flexible like ours are. So when they drink water, they kind of have to dunk their beaks in, let their beaks fill, and then tip their heads back to let the water kind of flow down their throats into their stomachs. So that's how they actually drink water. This particular bird just likes to stand in water when she has it available. She spends a lot of time just standing in her water. So I'm not really surprised that she is just kind of standing here soaking that one foot because she has the other tucked underneath her feathers. But must be something in it for her. So she's just kind of hanging out in the water pan here. I'm gonna scroll back and see if there were any questions as we were reading, see if anybody had anything they wanted to know about this red-tailed hawk. In the background, we also have a great horned owl. I'm sure she's pretty distant, so I won't talk too much about her, but back here we have this great horned owl who's also indoors getting a little bit of bath time in during this cold weather. Want to make sure everyone gets a chance to kind of clean off their feet, clean off their beaks, get a good bath in, as well as stay nice and warm from those very cold temps. Both of these two species of birds are here in Minnesota and even further north all year round. So these two species are both perfectly able to stay warm outside. We've got all of them are out there right now staying warm even though it's been super chilly. But these two are inside for today at least to get a little bit of time in the water. We don't have any other questions. Somebody commenting. Yeah, both of the birds that are in here I think are really stunning examples of some of the colorations that these different birds have. Both red-tailed hawks and great horned owls as kind of top predators. They need to worry a little bit about hiding from their prey so they can sneak up on them, but they don't actually have any of their own natural predators. A healthy great horned owl and a healthy red-tailed hawk really don't have any predators out in the wild. So you get a nice variety of colors since they don't really need to hide from any predators. They have a little bit more leeway to have a lot of different variety of colors. And both of these two that are in this room right now are some of my favorite examples of red-tailed hawk colors. I really like the really kind of there aren't really any stripes on this red-tailed hawk's tail. It's just kind of a really nice kind of bright rusty red color, which I think is excellent. All right, folks. Well, if you are interested in learning more about the other online activities we are up to here at the Raptor Center, including how to get your own kind of a personal, close-up personal experience with any of these birds, you can check out the link I posted in the video description here. You can also find us at theraptorcenter.org. Keep following us here on Facebook. We're also on Instagram at the Raptor Center. Otherwise, folks, I hope everyone is staying warm, especially if you are in the kind of central region here of North America from Canada on down to our neighbors down south in Texas and that whole area. Hopefully everyone's staying warm and cozy. Looking forward to it getting to be spring here sometime soon so we can get outside, do some birding, stay nice and warm and safe. So everyone have a great rest of your week. We will see you next week for some more Reading with Raptors. Have a good day, everyone.